Hello, my name is Kimi Marlowe and I am a 41-year-old artist living and working in North Yorkshire, England. Um, as far as I can remember, just from in my childhood, really, I've always drawn and painted. I used to spend every weekend with my nanny out in the countryside, which is actually where I live now. Um, and she loved to paint. She loved watercolour and she loved to see me doing everything creative, and so I would spend all my weekends with her painting and drawing and encouraged to, always express myself. Um, I have such happy memories from childhood, and yeah, that's always sort of been within me. So as I went through school, and then I went on to art college, studied fine art and photography. And then I chose photography as my degree, so then I went off to university and did photography. I always now sort of look back and regret that decision. I think had I taken the fine art route, things would have been a lot different. So I worked as a photographer after graduation for about maybe 6 or 7 years freelance, then got a job in a studio working, quite mundanely, very repetitive work just as a photographer, which, it served a purpose at the time. I got married and had my two children, and it worked fine for me at that point, but I stopped painting. So I didn't do any sort of painting for about, I would say, 8 years until 2019. I sort of got back into it as the children got a little bit older and I had a little bit more time again. I've gone back to my painting and back to abstract, and I'm absolutely loving it. I'm just immersed within the work. Um, I'm very much influenced by emotion and intuitive painting, so often I don't know where the painting's going to end up. Well, mostly I never know where it's going to end up. I just like to start and have that childlike freedom again and layer up the paint. So I work with acrylic, so it dries pretty quick. So I'll just work in thick layers, thin layers. I use various media, so I'll introduce pencil, charcoal, oil pastel. I love how oil pastel creates a resist with the paint, and I like to use a lot of water and really get that emotion, get that energy. I'm always looking to incorporate space into my work, especially recently. We've been carrying out major renovations, so we're living in a static caravan for about a year up until June, and the lack of space had such an impact on me that that's something that I'm really focusing on at the moment, is getting a lot of space into the work. And um yeah, I like to work in various sizes. That's not a specific thing for me. I'll go through a phase of working very small, usually always in a series. So I'll maybe start between 3 and 10 at a time and work from one to another. That way I don't get too precious on one painting. I can just sort of move between them all and keep in my flow. As well as waiting for, things to dry and that sort of thing. I've always had a thing about drips and the luscious wet paint and how the paint moves and flows naturally on the canvas. That appears a lot in my work, and it has done since I was that 17-year-old at art college. For me, the process is the most important part of the work, just being fully immersed and within my flow. And I think the biggest challenge of being an artist is getting into that state of flow. Sometimes day-to-day life takes over, and I can go days sometimes even weeks without painting, without feeling the urge to paint, and then I'll find my flow again, and I'll be back on it, and I'll want to spend every minute of every day painting. And then the challenge arises again of, life taking over. So one of my main influences is colour. I am absolutely fascinated by colour and what colours work with other colours. I like to work with a limited palette so I can mix from the same palette and so everything becomes cohesive, and I can just get fully embraced by the colour and how things work together. Also creating differences within the work. I like to, use the different media, different ways of making marks, different tools, just to create a sense of difference so the viewer has almost like a story, looking around the work, finding new things each time you look. You get a different experience looking at the work from further away as you would up close. You'll notice something new every time. My hope is for people to look at my work and just feel something. It can be anything, but just to stir something or remind them of something, of maybe a memory, um, a, a landscape, a colour that they've seen somewhere on while travelling, or just to stir some kind of emotion. And that's always my hope, I think. I just enjoy the process. I also like to use collage a lot in my work and build up that interesting surface. I think that often does appear. I actually have a collection of old diaries from when I was a child that I'm thinking for a future project I'd like to incorporate some of that into my work and make it a lot more personal somehow. So yeah, going forward, that's something I'm currently working on as well. I think my photography background also plays a part in how I work. I worked with a interior architectural photographer for about 5 years, so I'm very interested in linear shapes and line and angle and compartmentalizing things into sections, and that shows up a lot in my photography and also a lot in my painting as well. You can look at my photography and my painting side by side and realise, they're very much interchangeable in the way I see the world is very evident, I think, in the two. I think advice I'd give to my younger self or to other artists would just be to create more. If you're looking for a narrative, if you're looking for what your work's about, you just need to keep producing, just keep going, doing more, and it will eventually speak to you and it'll show you the way. I think working intuitively is a great way of having things show up in the work and make you realise, and through journaling and just looking back at previous work, you can recognise patterns often and create narratives from them. Thank you for listening and learning about my work, and I hope you've really enjoyed this. It's not something I'm used to doing is speaking like this, so yeah, thank you very much.